Hi, Nick.
Hi, Amanda.
Welcome to At the Kitchen Table.
Glad to be here.
We guide, inspire, and connect entrepreneurs. And so I'm here with you, my old friend, Nick Bailey. How do I title you? You're with T3, you're a consultant, you're a speaker, you're a former CEO.
It's a whole lot of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. How do you like to be titled? Who are you?
I don't know. And I think I've realized for the first time in my life, I really don't like titles.
All right.
So what people say is industry leader and coming up on 30 years in the industry.
Yeah.
I hope I've learned a couple of things.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you have. It's interesting. You and I've spent a lot of time together sort of talking about the industry, which we have in common. We like to kick the same stuff around.
Right.
So you come from this unique background of having kind of had your comeuppance at RE/MAX. You got a real estate license as a young man. You had your comeuppance at RE/MAX.
Sure.
Then you slink away and you go where for a short time? And how does that set the stage for your long career?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I did start as an agent at 21 years old and opened a brokerage and then did spend about 11 and a half years at RE/MAX with brokers, agents, regions, leadership, all great experience. And I'll tell you what, I had no idea that my career would take all these twists and turns.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to work on the tech side and the consumer side. And so did Market Leader that was acquired by Trulia, that was acquired by Zillow. Most people know that.
And then you ended up at Zillow, like on accident, you sort of ended up at Zillow?
Yeah, I went through the acquisitions, helping that organization translate how does tech and consumer work with this industry. And
What years was that?
That was about 2012 through 2019.
Then you bounced out of there and ended up where?
I got recruited to a company in the Northeast, a little company called Century 21 to be their president and CEO.
Small company. How many agents were working for them at the time?
128,000.
Whoa, that's globally?
Spanning about 80 countries.
Okay. That's a big company.
It is, and it was just over 50 years old, needed oxygen, needed energy, needed some life, needed a new image. And even though I was only there 18 months, I got to do some cool work, so it was fun.
Well, and whatever path you set them on at that time, their branding is much more current and it's better now. The C21 brand lives on. I don't know what their total agent count now is, but
I think it's even more than that. But believe it or not, at the time when I was there, get this, there were 23,000 agents in China, 24,000. The average age was between 22 and 23 years old.
Whoa.
Very different than the U.S.
Yeah, young brokers. So then you pop back over to be the CEO at RE/MAX. Well, they recruited you back over and sort of made a promise to you that they'd run you up. Is that sort of what happened, or am I making that up?
Yeah, no, it was kind of a version of that. And so C21 being on the East Coast, I never left. I stayed here with my wife and my two kids and lived in Denver.
Yeah.
And so that's a long commute to the office, going to New Jersey. And I decided that relocating the family was not in the cards for us.
Sure, your kids were like at such a formative age.
They were 9 and 13, and we just decided this was home.
Yeah.
And that truly was the decision. People try to make it much more than that.
Yeah.
But I just decided that as a parent, you only have one chance to screw up your kids.
Sure.
And I was going to make sure I did it right.
Okay.
And so
I think they turned out all right, right?
They're doing pretty well. And so we decided I was going to redo something here. RE/MAX was not in the cards. I was actually going to acquire an independent consulting firm that was based here in Colorado. That was the goal. And life happened. That deal didn't come together, and I got a call and ended up going back to RE/MAX to lead that company.
Yeah, that was good. You had a couple year stint, which turns out as a CEO
Almost
sometimes,
5.
Was it 5 years there? What do you think? What is the hardest part about being a CEO?
You know, in a global organization, because RE/MAX is large as well, 145,000 agents, 110 countries when I was there. And I think the most difficult piece of it is you have to realize you're making the best decision that you can with the information you have. You're not going to please everyone. Everyone has an opinion. And especially in this business, independent contractors and entrepreneurs, trust me, everyone has opinions.
Yeah, I call them cats.
Cats? Why cats?
Well, because they lay out in the field and you try to call to them and say, come. And they pick their head up and they go back to what they're doing. We're like sheep if you had sheep in the field and you call them, they come. And independent contractors are cats.
Attack cats. Because then when they're hungry, they come and claw your face off.
I thought they were more docile, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
now that
not.
you say it that way.
They're not.
They're big cats, huh?
Well, there's a saying that someone told me a long time ago that you know why gingers as adults can come across overly confident is because we got picked on when we were young. And so we've built this armored shield around us. And I didn't realize it was a perfect setup for being a leader in real estate.
Well, that's terrific. I'm glad that big red's paying off for you there. I popped out a little redheaded baby, and my dad called me Big Red from the jump.
Did you have any idea this was a possibility?
Yeah, my grandfather was a redhead like you.
Okay.
A true red.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. But my dad's so Italian that I don't think my mom thought she'd have any red at all.
I thought it would skip a generation too with my kids, but my kids got it.
They're red.
Yeah.
You know, my business partner, Jerry Golden, has 13 grandchildren. They're all red.
Oh, whoa.
Uh-huh.
That's a little unheard of.
It is.
By the same parents, I'm assuming not.
Well, no, it's just that his 3 sons were reds, and they all married fair women, and they all got reds.
So that's what you learned here today, folks, is the
There
genetics of ginger mating.
Excellent. I wonder, do you feel like traditional brokerage is broken?
No, 0.
Okay.
What's broken is the headline that makes it sound like it is.
What are the headlines? What are they saying about brokerage that they'd like you to believe that isn't true?
And this is something that I've seen for 30 years. There's only one brokerage model that should fit for the entire industry and all the agents should be associated with. There's only one way to do it. And so we've got what you would coin traditional brokerage on splits. There's a lot of different economic models. A lot of people talk about the multi-level marketing or the profit share type companies that are out, however you want to coin them. There are fair share companies, which I would say those are people are writing a check on a monthly basis, kind of a capped fair share. And then there's flavors in between. And some of them are monkey math that only the CFO of the company knows how to figure what the split would look like. But I truly believe that there's room for all of them. Now, we can go really granular with the data, which I'm big on stats, as you know, and the data on this.
Yeah.
And you start to look at the average revenue per agent that goes into a brokerage of each different segmented model. You look at the expenses associated with each of those models. And what a lot of the data says, and you mentioned traditional specifically, the highest average income are agents associated with traditional models by far. And to give you an example, it's around $90,000+, and the next closest is $65,000 on a fair share model.
You know, what's interesting to me, though, is that people who really do think they're working full-time in real estate, they understand the value of that money they have to bank into their brokerage, because if they really are running a business, they understand there are true operational costs.
That's right.
And the reason why people at brokerage models where they're just taking either like a cap or just a desk, some kind of fee, not a desk fee, but more like just a transaction fee, those people those are likely people to make less money because they're only doing 4 deals a year for their aunts and uncles anyway. Right. So they go to a place where they only have to pay a fee. But if you're really working full-time in real estate, you don't mind paying $90,000 because you knew you were going to spend it anyway to operate your business. So it makes sense to me that people stay at cheap models because they're not high producers, and that people who are high producers want to go to more expensive places.
And it all comes down to the service level. When you're doing the amount of business that your team does as compared to someone that does 4 deals a year, you need a lot more service. You need a lot more systems. You're running a business. And so whether you're spending it out of your own pocket or you're utilizing the scale of the broker that you're with, you're still going to have costs associated with running your business. Okay,
so the $90,000 that's the average amount of money like a full-time working agent pays to their brokerage.
That's the income.
$90,000 in income.
The average income of an agent with a traditional brokerage is just over $90,000 a year.
And what's like the average split amount? Is it like 10%?
It's about 80-20.
80-20.
On average.
Okay.
But you look at most brokerages in the country, except for the real low-cost transaction fee models, are trying to stay anywhere from around $15,000 to $18,000 a year in total gross revenue per agent into their company. Now, we're talking those are most companies of size. That's going to exclude a lot of companies out there that have 10 agents, that it's you, your 2 best friends, and somebody's daughter's sister working together.
Yeah.
That's a little different.
What do you think makes of the really boutique independent brokerages across this country, the real independent brokerages, the little guys?
It's so funny you mentioned this because I was just having a conversation before I got here. And we were talking about we're in this big acquisition mode and have been for the last couple of years in the industry.
Decades. I feel like M&A has been a decade-long pursuit in real estate.
Longer.
Okay.
Let's even go back to NRT.
Sure.
And
That's Coldwell Banker's
they
parent
acquired
company.
Coldwell Banker, and then they acquired hundreds of companies and converted them some to Coldwell Banker and Sotheby's. And that was Sendon at the time that acquired Century 21, Coldwell Banker.
Sendon was a relocation company, yeah?
They had Relo, they had Avis Rental Car, they had Wyndham Hotels. I mean, these companies have a long history, but the point though is going back to when NRT was acquiring all these companies around the country. Everyone was freaked out that everyone was only going to work for NRT. Well, when you look in some of the metropolitan areas that they gobbled up and had significant market share, 50, 60, 70%, do you know what happened? This resurgence of entrepreneur boutiques that opened. Fast forward 20, 25 years, the highest dollars or the most amount that has been spent on acquisition of brokerage companies are those boutiques that were born out of, I don't want to be part of that big conglomerate. And they turned into multi-billion-dollar companies. And I think if I had a crystal ball, I would say the same thing's happening today with the Compass Anywhere acquisition. They'll continue to be a large company. Same thing happened with Prudential and Berkshire Hathaway. And then you see these boutiques and these entrepreneurs come out of the woodwork. And so we'll have a resurgence of those in the next couple of years, I believe.
Do you think it is Robert Refkin's mission to remove syndication from area MLSs in an effort to try and take Zillow down?
I can't say because I've spent time with Robert, but not to that level to be able to answer that. You'd have to have him on to answer that.
I'd like that because I do wonder if he's really cheerleading on behalf of the agent, which I would actually like to believe. I call him the good shepherd in that scenario. Or if that there is a motivation, longer range, that looks a little bit more consumer-centric. And so I'm confused. Is he cheerleading for the agent or is he cheerleading for the consumer? And I don't quite know.
The one thing that I don't think you're alone on is being confused about it.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I will tell you I feel very strongly about. Let's put the rules of clear cooperation into a bucket compared to how it executes.
And do the rules of clear cooperation even apply any longer?
Yeah, do they matter? Are they being enforced? Is the 24-hour rule, does it matter? That's one thing.
Yeah.
How it executes, though, is where I really focus. And my time, especially at the portals with a Trulia Zillow, where they had the consumer absolutely as the North Star.
Sure.
That was it. They said, we're designing this site. And I just saw an older interview last week with Jeff Bezos, which we all know is just the epitome of an example with Amazon of every employee was obsessed with the consumer. And it's fixing pain points. Like it's so much easier for me to return an item to Kohl's down the street now than having to find somewhere to ship it back. Always that consumer in mind. That's where Zillow won with the consumers, is they put them first. And the reality of what we're dealing with today with all this stuff around clear cooperation and private exclusives, and no one wants to play hide and seek for a listing. Agents don't, consumers don't. And it's not going to, it's a non-starter.
Explain your concept of hide and seek.
The idea that if there's a home listed, buyers, if it fits within their parameters, they want to see and be able to examine every home possible.
They want to find it easily.
That fits their parameters.
Yeah.
You know, I sit here and I probably sound 110 years old to say, when I sold real estate with MLS books, but it used to drive me crazy how we would only get information about new houses on the market in a book every 2 weeks. And so in between the lag of a new book coming out to share information with each other, new listings would pop up. It was really easy to lose a client to a drive-by on a yard sign because you didn't know it existed. Or the buyer would come back and say, Amanda, why didn't you show me this house? But I didn't know about it. And so that's what I mean by hide and go seek, is especially leading two companies that were global. And other countries don't have MLS. They don't have license regulation. You can wake up and decide you want to sell your neighbor's house. I mean, it's in so many countries, it's so unsophisticated. We are the envy around the globe.
Yeah, for sure.
And anyone that hasn't spent time in 100 countries learning how real estate is done, you realize we are the envy of cooperation and the sophistication of how real estate is conducted, both for buyers, sellers, and for the agent community. And so a little bit around the horn on this for your question, but I really think it comes down to these headlines are irrelevant onto how buyer and seller behavior works and how agents have learned how great cooperation is for them.
So I'm curious, when you've gone to these like global places, what's the craziest place you've seen real estate be transacted with, like the least amount of rules or the most like unstructured place? Like if you go to, I'm just thinking like Costa Rica, is there any structure there?
I'll tell you one that was really interesting, and whether it fits the unstructured or not, it was going to Spain, and I was in the northeast part of Spain, and this was years ago, and the company that I was working for at the time, I happened to walk by one of their offices, and I walked in and said hello. And I wasn't the president or the CEO at the time. They didn't care if I was the janitor. They just thought it was so cool that someone from the headquarters stopped in and said hello.
Okay.
They were the only company, and they had just started with their advertising, print advertising, to use photos of properties.
Nobody was taking pictures in Spain?
0 pictures. And this was kind of in the countryside of Spain, so it wasn't in the metropolitan area. But you should have seen the look on my face. And granted, it was a few years ago, but not that many years ago.
Right. Not that cameras didn't exist, right? You're not that old.
Right. I think that there were cameras on phones, but they didn't use photography. All they used was text. And it was the equivalent of, to me, old classified ads from 30 years ago.
Sure.
And so this one company, because they had a tie to a U.S. headquarters company, thought, wow, we should start using an exterior photograph in some of our marketing.
No kidding, huh? How about this?
Amazing.
Brilliant. It's interesting. I will say I spent 30 years going to the international conventions. And of course, the global presence at the international conventions was growing and growing and growing. And somebody would walk up. I worked a booth at the international convention for literally 30 years. People would walk up to the booth and they would not be speaking English as a first language. And the global presence that grew there was interesting, particularly in the last 10 years. I began to realize there were many, many, many more global agents than there were actually domestic agents. I just didn't quite see that shift happening, but it's substantial. I mean, if you look at the amount of agent count decrease from some of these large global brands in the US specifically, those agents are going somewhere. Where are they going? Because they're leaving these big global brands. And I could feel it at the international convention where like more and more people weren't from here.
Yeah.
And so the local agents have left and gone where, as an example, I think both Keller Williams and RE/MAX's agent count domestically is substantially down.
Yeah, and it's a good question. I've obviously worked with both of those companies, many companies that are large. And the question is there one company that can have brand staying power and just continue to grow? You get to a certain mass. And what's interesting about this industry is it's, especially when there are new concepts, hey, it's new, it's fresh, it's shiny object, I want to be part of it. And then as something gets to a certain amount of scale and market share, there seems to continue to be growth. And then as new competitors come up, it's, I tried that company, or everybody's with them, I want to do something different. There is this core foundation, entrepreneurial, I call it like the toddler syndrome. I do it by myself, this real independence that people want in this business when they get into it. And I think that impacts scale when you get to that point. I also think that, well, here's something. I don't believe any of these companies should be publicly traded. And I think the vast majority that turn into some level of public trade or private investor, where all of a sudden it's no longer agent.
By the people, for the people kind of thing.
Exactly. All of a sudden now the bottom line is, at your conference, let's not give them water, or let's charge them for their awards, or all of a sudden we're not keeping the customer on the pedestal. And I can see similarities when I study these companies, whether I worked for them or not, that all have the same syndrome when all of a sudden the legal or the finance department started running the company.
Well, and it's interesting. You can take the home builders as an example of why being a publicly traded company isn't good for the consumer. Because the home builders now, they've run the little guys out. I mean, almost entirely. The home building industry today is custom home builders or the big five.
Yeah.
It's D.R. Horton, KB, Meritage,
Toll.
Now. It's even Pulte and Richmond. Toll's a heavy hitter, but not heavy enough to play with D.R. Horton, Richmond, KB.
Fair.
So you got these big companies, and I had heard a statistic that the big home builders are building 90% of all inventory in America anymore, which means there's no middle market. There is no middle builder that used to do like in our necks of the woods. They were places called like Village Homes or Sheffield Homes or Remington Homes.
Right.
Like these were the middleman, and they have just been hacked at. I mean, to be fair, the only reason some of those companies have survived in the Denver market is because 1,000 residential houses burnt down in Louisville, and they've been able to sort of hang on to the middle of the market because there's some residential lot availability now for them. But I mean, the big guys, Lennar is the number one home builder in the country. I would be remiss if I didn't add Lennar into that pot, but like they're doing all of it, and actually their quality is getting terrible. So the quality of construction is garbage because they stopped providing water at the convention. Mm-hmm. They just, and in that example, they stopped putting stone on the outsides of the house. It's just so cheap.
Yeah.
But they're publicly traded companies, so they don't give a shit about quality of construction. All they're diving at is what the stock market's going to do for them. And so if you can take the home building industry as an example of where the residential real estate industry goes if all of these companies end up public, because you're going to have the big five or the big four, maybe the big three public companies whose stock is trading really at the expense of the consumer and the agent experience. So we'll see how this goes.
Well, and I think that's a good point. Interesting similarity with the builders. What I've seen is when you look at, there's a finite agent count at any given point in the industry. And yes, it goes up and down. There's huge churn with agents that get a license and get into the business and get out of the business.
Well, because a new fool is born every day. Because this housewife in West Arvada wants to get into real estate and gets in and doesn't stay in a long time. But then a new housewife in West Arvada gets. So there's this like turn and burn you're talking about. But then there's this like steady full-time real estate practitioner, which is probably like literally 10% of the entire agent count.
It's low. 87% of agents that get a license don't have it 5 years later. And so even though there's this big churn, the total number of agents is finite. So when you look at the growth, the way my experience says that Wall Street on a quarter by quarter or an annual basis has to look at double-digit growth, it's just not there.
Yeah, it's like
so
not even
you can
feasible.
have a 2 or 3 year run, in my opinion, in the public market when it comes to the brokerage franchise world, that you can show some double-digit sustainable growth. But when you've got a finite customer base, not hundreds of millions, but when you have 1.5 million realtors and maybe it goes to 1.3 million or it goes up to 1.6 million, there's not enough delta there to create enough double-digit growth for enough public companies in the market to get Wall Street excited about it. And when you look at how many companies in this industry have become public in the last 10 to 15 years, they didn't even have any comparisons. So you look at the first 5 or 6 years that many of these companies were public, you saw the market support them.
Sure.
But I talk to analysts weekly with consulting with them. And analysts and the history now, they realize that that type of growth doesn't exist. So now all they're looking at is following interest rates, transaction count, and associating that back to a company, with the exception of if you're fairly new, 1, 2, or 3 years to the public market, but you'll cap out and you won't see those returns. And I don't think that's good for agents. I don't think it's good for brokerage. And ultimately, I think it gets passed down and it's not good for buyers and sellers.
That's right. Why do you think agents mostly can't pull this business off? It's much harder than it seems.
It is. Why do more fail than succeed?
Yeah.
First, I think they get into it for the wrong reason. I'm going to set my own hours. I'm going to be my own boss. They think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. They maybe bought or sold a house or two.
Paid that commission and thought that's easy money.
And if they had a great agent, the agent did their job and made it look easy.
Correct.
Even though they were running on a hamster wheel behind the scenes. And the other part of it, I think that there's so much fragmentation. Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yep.
You're doing so many different things and there's not enough consistency. Where if you go to a regular job and you have a supervisor that says, here are the tasks that we need you to complete, you do it, you're successful, you maybe get promoted, you do more, maybe you become a leader, but the roadmap's there for you.
Yeah. There's no roadmap here.
No, you're starting your own business and you're using your sphere and your relationships. And if you connect to the foundation of the business and you've got the right personality, I think it's one of the best businesses in the world. But the reality is this business is not for everyone.
You talk about the agent being the North Star.
Depends on where you sit in this.
Okay.
I think that's the epidemic of the industry is people not realizing who is their true customer.
The agent not realizing who their customer is.
I say it depends. Like Zillow, for example, they knew that the buyer, seller, end consumer, that's their North Star. People that are really successful brokerage owners,
okay,
they know that most of them, the agent is absolutely their North Star.
Sure.
And when they do everything for the agent, then they let the agent do what they need to do for the buyer seller. They don't try to skip over. And I think that that's a big hurdle for the industry is people try to be too many things to too many people. And I've been in boardrooms so many times when they say, I'll ask, who's the customer? Well, we've got multiple. That's where companies go wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when you say it like that, I realize there's lots of sales jobs of a different kind in this industry.
Sure.
And so, if I'm doing real estate work, I know my North Star is the buyer or the seller, or my sphere of influence, like my customer. Sure. My customer is pretty well defined in my real estate business. And so I do think that the traditional broker does do a good job of reminding agents that their bread is buttered by the residential house in your city, whatever. Boy, the business is so noisy, though. I feel like there's so much noise in the business. There's so much noise with ancillary services. There's so much noise around, being a realtor, being a non-realtor, being a subscriber, a non-subscriber, now with toys like AI, all this stuff that has just drowns the real estate industry. So the jack of all trades, master of none, with no roadmap in a noisy industry is real tricky to distill all that down. I think it's getting noisier, louder,
you just
busier.
answered the question better than I did. Why do most agents fail? Right there.
Yeah.
They can't delineate through those different stakeholders to figure out where do I spend my time.
What do you think AI does to the real estate industry, or where do you see that playing in? Or how do you maybe think, what are the best ways for AI to support our industry? And what's not going to happen with AI?
Yeah, so the best ways that I think it supports is it removes some of the mundane tasks that either makes it easier or makes it more efficient. And I talk a lot about tech. Is it tech or is it a toy? Because it's so amazing to me how much technology is out there. Look at smart home tech. Let's take that for a second.
Sure.
I've got some friends that went wild on smart home tech, and I'm a huge smart home tech person.
Yeah.
But I built a new house a few years ago, and we were very particular about this smart tech is actually a waste of time. Yeah. Now, it's kind of cool what it does, but are we really going to wake up and use it? And the answer was no. And so we have cool tech in our house, but I don't yell at my house in every room like some of my friends do. I have one friend, we hate going over. We're spending the evening with them. We're at dinner at their house, and all the husband does is yell at his house all night long. That to me is not smart tech. And so we laugh about that, and I use it as a silly example. But the same thing happens with, say, AI and tech in real estate. So much of the tech people want to invent or apply to their business because it makes something good better. That's where tech fails. To me, where AI is great, or put any tech in that.
Wait, can you just put a pin on what your favorite smart home tech is?
My absolute favorite one?
Yeah, what's the thing you did in your house that is a yes?
We used the Brilliant. It's called Brilliant is the name of the system.
Okay.
And it's got one little screen, but it integrates sound, heat, HVAC, roller shades, garage door openers on all Ring cameras. So to me, where it's great is
where it's brilliant
is it's a single source, fully integrated. Where the house we moved from, I had done it all myself. Everything was a separate system.
Yeah, it was all fragmented. Yeah.
So that we did well.
Okay.
And if I had to take it one step further, because I'm big on lighting and music.
Yeah.
Lighting is where we got it right.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to put a pin in that.
Lighting. Yeah, you can double tap any of the switches or triple tap to get your different scenes. And so
I like it.
We literally don't use one light switch in our house.
It just does. You have it set on a program and it just comes on and off as you have set it.
Yeah, or when I go to bed, I have a one touch on my phone for all lights off, and that's exterior, interior. The lighting for me is cool.
I'll pull it back to real estate because...
wait, I got to answer the question you asked
okay.
me. For crying out loud. You get me down to the smart tech stuff, I'll go nuts.
I know. I was going to say.
Here's where tech does well. Here's where AI will do well. When it's solving a problem, where there's conflict and there's something that's a pain in the butt, that's when AI comes in and serves well. That's when any tech product comes in and serves well. When you use it because it makes your life easier.
Yeah.
I use the lights in my house on smart tech because I don't go around and switch 10 lights when I want to go to bed. I solved a problem. Where I think people will go wrong with looking at tools and AI is when they already have something good that they're using it to just make better. Then you forget to use it.
Yeah, that, or when they just go down these rabbit holes, looking for something that with no problem in mind.
Right.
So that's an interesting point, right? Because I have a young broker who's working for us and he loves tech and tools. But except I can see that if he's not solving a problem, you just get sort of drowned out in it, where you just you go down these little rabbit holes and you find yourself down a thing that you weren't even solving for anything really.
No.
So you should identify a problem.
Yeah.
And then try and solve for it.
Cars is such a cool example for me, and I'm a car nut. Look at how...
I didn't know that.
Look how tech in cars was awesome, and all of a sudden touch screens got rid of a lot of buttons in the car. Then we went too far. Some cars you get in, and there's no button to even turn down the sound or the temperature. And look at how now these auto manufacturers in the last couple of years are coming back to and saying, we put way too much into a single source screen. The problem now that we're solving for with tech is bringing some of the basic buttons back in cars.
People were yelling at their cars too.
True. True. And so I think that that's an example of solving for a problem, too many buttons. We oversolved for it, and now we're having to back off from it. It's a real easy one that everyone gets in their car and they can understand. The same thing happens in the real estate business. We oversolve with some of this tech because we think it's cool and we want to be hip and innovative. And we may have oversolved for it. Or to your point, we went down too far of a rabbit hole. There's no return. It's not helping me get a buyer or seller. Doesn't drive my revenue or closings. And all it does is cost you money. Good tech, good AI should reduce costs, increase efficiency. If you're buying tech and it's increasing your costs at the end of the year, you've made a mistake.
Do you think, I'm going to pivot and then I'll wrap us up here. You're working as a consultant now for a company who does mergers and acquisitions of all varieties in real estate. The National Association of Realtors, so boards of realtors, they're merging MLSs, they're merging companies. So you get this real cool insider lens at all brokerage models, all MLS models, all sort of realtor models. And I have this working idea that I call HAA, H-A-A, the Homeowners Association of America.
Okay.
And I think that the National Association of Realtors should consolidate down to 51 total boards, a national board and 50 state boards.
State. I could get on board with that.
And that inside of each state association, we should create a consumer subscription-based model that is run by the National Association of Realtors, supported by the Colorado Association of Realtors, and they would have a consumer subscription model. And the real estate agents can lead the charge on getting the consumer model off the ground.
And what as a consumer am I subscribing to?
You're going to subscribe mostly, so I believe that NAR's finest strength left today, after they were thoroughly beaten, is political advocacy. So I think the National Association of Realtors' strongest muscle left is just being purple on the Hill, advocating on behalf of homeownership rights in America.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
So they're going to continue to do that well because there is no Homeowners Association of America. So there is nobody advocating on the Hill for the best interests of the consumers who are homeowners in America, which is many, many.
And would you agree they've always done that and great lobbying work?
Yep.
We just don't know enough about
right.
the successes.
So they're doing all this lobbying effort on behalf of the realtor for the consumer. Except now that the Realtor Association is under threat, I think that we just go and sell what we've already packaged, which is all this political advocacy that we're doing all over the country already, and we should sell it to the consumer in exchange for dollars, for dues dollars from them too. And here's how it might look. Amanda does a real estate transaction with buyer and seller. Mm-hmm. There is a newsletter that has political advocacy that the Colorado Association of Realtors is already compiling. They're already reviewing bills. They're already doing legislative policy. They're down there working on the Hill, doing the things that the Colorado legislature is doing. And then I do a real estate transaction, and for $29, I pay for my client, who is now a new homeowner, to subscribe to HIA and receive this information directly from the Colorado Association of Realtors. So now the consumer would be getting information either in the form of a physical newsletter or in the form of a digital newsletter, and they would have access to understand what's happening from a legislative policy perspective in their state all the time, which is good for homeowners. We're already doing the work anyway, so we're not creating any new work for the realtor associations. They're already doing it. And the consumer now becomes a dues-paying member, like AAA, of HAA. It's just an arm of NAR. And this is where I think you could actually bridge.
You've given this a lot of thought.
I have. And
sleepless nights.
Oh, well, this isn't the shit that keeps me up. That's for sure. But I think you could bridge the consumer and the realtor in this place, because the truth of the matter is both have a vested interest in the health of their state, the health of the real estate market, things like well and water, or things like, fracking or oil in our case, or things that happen in our state that matter to both the realtor and the consumer. So it bridges them, creates more dues dollars into the National Association of Realtors so that we can continue to advocate on the best interests of home ownership rights. It gives viability to the National Association of Realtors, for which they need a breath of rejuvenation into. And it basically fortifies the fort for the Realtor Association, which is you bring the consumers along under this wing of political advocacy, and it fortifies NAR. And I do think NAR is worth saving. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think NAR is worth saving. I also think that you have this three-tiered stool that is large brokerage, the National Association of Realtors, and the MLSs. And the Department of Justice did a fine job of fracturing the three-legged stool. They broke it all by decoupling the industry. And essentially, large brokerage and the National Association of Realtors, the club, birthed a bouncing baby boy known as the MLS. It is because of these two parts of the stool that we have a data share agreement. And I think without all three of this stool actually standing firm, it is bad for the consumer. And I don't think the consumer really realized that the lawsuit that changed the way we sell real estate was actually no good for them.
Then the data is showing there's no advantage to the consumer.
So this is my working thing. This is HAA in conjunction with the National Association of Realtors, run by 50 state associations. What's it called when leadership doesn't want to leave because they're afraid to lose their job? Whatever.
Wimps.
No, I just think that what happens is you have all of these association executives.
Oh, I call them fiefdoms.
That's right. Fiefdom is the word you've used.
Fiefdom is what I've used. So you have a really interesting concept. I'm not going to be able to comment on a lot of it because I need to give it some thought. The one piece of it I agree with you is between associations, and we don't need 450 MLSs across the country.
Or 900 associations.
No. But the reality is there's jobs associated with it. They're in their local market.
Right.
And so these are fiefdoms that people don't just raise their hand and say, you know what, let's close 200 of these. I'm willing to walk away from my job too. And so it's very much a protectionist system. Mm-hmm. Now, I think, look, there were 800 how many years ago? Mm-hmm. And now we're not quite to just over half of that. Mm-hmm. This is forced consolidation is just happening, especially with tech and advancements. And I think it'll continue to happen. I just wish it would happen a lot faster, but it won't because of the fiefdoms. It's the reality.
Well, in these local markets, can be hyper local.
Sure.
And I also do think that those people can continue to serve their local markets as a subsidiary of the Colorado Association of Realtors.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they don't have to be the Vail Valley or Winter Park or these little tiny markets that have, these associations with 30 members max, trying to do all the things that maybe a larger market has, or maybe the consolidation could be there, but
correct.
really it's actually the employee at the associations that I think is standing in the way of the consolidation. It's not the realtor member.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Mergers and acts, real quick.
Yeah.
Where's this business going in terms of who gets together? And, I didn't see Redfin Rocket getting in bed with Compass, but here they are sort of wrestling around together.
Yeah.
Do you have any, want to throw any predictions out there?
No, I think it's all nonsense. All this, because that's dealing with coming soon, and we'll put the listing on this site first because of this partnership. Now the Rocket Redfin is Rocket's putting their mortgage links on Compass's site.
Yeah.
With the partnership. So what we don't know yet with Rocket and Redfin is it just a mortgage play for mortgage origination?
Well, that's where the money's always been in the business.
Always the highest dollar per transaction comes out of the mortgage side.
Yeah.
And so are they really going to use the front end of Redfin to just drive the mortgage company? If so, we've all read that book before, and I know how that book ends. And I think that's going to be a history repeat itself. If it's under a veil of we're creating this end-to-end platform, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it's more of a mortgage play than people think. I think they paint it as more of a tech play. I think it's more of a mortgage acquisition revenue play.
It's interesting. Travis Saxton, who's the chief strategist at RE/MAX, he has really been driving to capture the entire consumer experience. So he wants to capture, the real estate piece is $1 there, the mortgage piece, the title piece, then there's the home conveniences. I think, like I always sort of jokingly say, like, before you know it, Home Depot and Lowe's are going to sucked into this equation because pretty soon Ace Hardwares are going to be owned by Keller Williams or something crazy like this.
Keep in mind that already tried to happen with Home Depot and Berkshire Hathaway.
And? They
already tried to play that out because remember, they're both owned by Berkshire Hathaway.
Okay.
And so it was, how do we get realtors, homeowners, buyers, sellers that are Berkshire Hathaway to make sure that they're shopping at Home Depot instead of Lowe's? How'd that work out?
Well, I don't know. It just doesn't mean anything to me, so I guess not so good.
Bingo.
Okay. So, but this whole thing, and then, even so much as like, they want you to buy your carpet from Carpet Exchange and buy your alarm system from alarms.com and buy your, your screws and bolts from Ace Hardware. Okay,
sure.
Fine.
Right.
So that the consumer remembers that Amanda, the realtor, helped her with alarms.com, or Amanda, the realtor, or Ryan, the lender, helped them with, like, so they're trying to put too many rocks in the bin, basically. It's making the basket heavy, and nobody can quite carry all the water, or whatever the analogy is. And so now this is what they think, is that you're going to capture this entire consumer experience, the broader consumer experience, instead of just mortgage, title, and real estate over here and home improvements over here. They're trying to capture the whole bin, basically.
No, the only way you could do that is if you move to Canada, because they're not afraid to say, we like monopolies here. When you look at Canada, there's one or two big this, there's one or two big this, there are one or two big real estate companies. It's a totally different thing. In your analogy there, the reality is you can put together all the rocks in that bucket for that singular experience. The question is, what's the lifetime of that experience? Because the average consumer only uses a real estate professional 3 times in their life. And the problem is when you go back 7 or 8 years later to after you bought a house, then to become a seller, half your rocks are out of business because new companies have taken over.
Right.
We have such a fragmented business world, and all the rocks that you talked about that are part of the experience, they're not all going to be around forever. And plus consumers want choice.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And so I love the concept of, you know what it reminds me of as you're talking out loud, and it's one I hate, and I'm sorry, but IKEA. I remember going in there. My wife and I needed something like a kitchen utensil of some sort. Panicked, I couldn't get out of there. If one of those ever catches on fire, everyone's a casualty.
They have little things on
Footsteps.
the roadmap.
I don't want to go on a Disney tour to buy a whisk. And so, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to control my experience of even footprints on the floor of how I walk through their store.
Sure.
I have never been in there and refuse to go in there again. Because I can't stand being guided through an experience when I want to go into an Ace Hardware and buy my whisk.
Well, and so actually to put a pin around the barn on all of that is, so bigger isn't always better. And it could be that these boutique brokerages actually do survive because people want to be able to go in to the small place and get what they want.
And customize it.
And not have to go through the footprints of click this Compass site to get pre-approved with a Rocket Redfin mortgage, to be stepped through this large experience where they get trapped in the back room somewhere and they can't get out of the IKEA, known as brokerage.
That's right. And if you look at the best agents in the world, you've done this a long time. You've done thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions.
Yeah.
One that you talked to a seller this morning and a seller that calls you this afternoon want two different things.
Yeah.
They may be at completely different price points. You handle them differently. You speak to them differently. You dress differently when you go view their property. The most successful agents in the world know how to customize the business to anticipate the unexpected needs and deliver on it to that consumer before they even know they need it.
Oh, for sure. And that's being a good chameleon in the business.
Yeah. And if it was the IKEA experience that you could create for everybody,
you just cannot.
This would be the easiest business in the world.
That's interesting. And we are going to wrap here because I'm going over time, but to be a chameleon in the business isn't a bad connotation. It means that if I'm going to somebody's house who's super high end and I know they like fine things, like, yeah, I might wear something a little nicer there than if I'm going to like horse property. You know, I might actually try and pivot and like show up in something that would make them comfortable, essentially.
Put your boots on, not your
heels or whatever. I'm not going to stomp around a horse property in heels.
Right.
That's almost bad business. So I think in some ways good real estate agents are good chameleons that way. But it is interesting. I was thinking about this recently. When I show up at their kitchen table, I actually do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, agree.
Thanks for coming.
Love to be here.
Would you come back?
Absolutely, anytime.